The Dravar Dominion was a name feared across countless star systems, a technologically advanced empire known for its ruthless conquests and overwhelming firepower. Their ships, sleek and imposing, were the epitome of galactic superiority, fast, heavily armed, and capable of decimating entire fleets in minutes. Their reputation for annihilating lesser species preceded them, and when they set their sights on the human sector, their arrogance was palpable. In a remote corner of the galaxy, a solitary human warship, a patrol vessel no larger than a freighter, drifted calmly through space, on routine duty. The ship's hull, worn from years of service, was a far cry from the polished, advanced designs of the Dravar. It lacked the sophisticated energy shields and laser cannons that would make even the bravest alien commanders hesitate. Instead, it was outfitted with more modest technology, a blend of hard-won human ingenuity and a determination to survive, even when outclassed by every other force in the galaxy. The crew of the human vessel, the USS Resolve, knew their ship wasn't impressive in appearance, but they were used to it. They weren't prepared, however, for what the Dravar fleet had in store. When the Dravar ships appeared on the radar, their size and numbers immediately made clear the imbalance of power. Hundreds of massive ships, all equipped with weapons capable of obliterating entire fleets, filled the black void of space. Their gleaming hulls shone with an otherworldly grace, their alien symbols marking them as a dominant force. The USS Resolve, by comparison, looked laughable, a tinkin of a ship in the shadow of a cosmic titan. "Sir, we're being hailed," came the voice of Lieutenant Sorel, the ship's communications officer, with a barely concealed note of anxiety in her voice. She glanced at Captain Larson, waiting for instructions. Captain Michael Larson, a seasoned leader with years of experience under his belt, remained unfazed. He had been through worse. Despite the overwhelming odds, he stood at the helm with a calm, measured demeanor, his hand resting lightly on the controls. "Put them through," Larson ordered. The screen flickered to life, revealing the face of a tall, reptilian alien, the Dravar fleet commander, his cold, calculating eyes studying the humans with disdain. His sharp teeth glistened as he spoke, his voice smooth, yet dripping with mockery. "You're far from home, humans. And it's admirable, I suppose, that you still dare patrol this space." The commander sneered, his voice echoing across the communication line. "But I'll make it simple for you. You've entered the territory of the Dravar Dominion, and this is where your journey ends. Your vessel is a curiosity, but a useless one. Leave now, and we might just spare you." The commander's words were laced with contempt, an insult wrapped in an offer of mercy. He clearly found the human ship laughable, an insignificant speck compared to the overwhelming might of the Dravar fleet. Larson didn't flinch. His crew had faced danger before, and they'd made a habit of refusing to bow to intimidation. He squared his shoulders, his expression unchanged, and responded with an easy calmness that contrasted with the alien's venom. "We're not going anywhere. This is neutral space, and we have the right to be here. You're welcome to leave peacefully, but if you insist on making this difficult, we'll deal with it." The Dravar commander barked a laugh, his voice booming over the comms. "Deal with it? How amusing. You're a speck of dust, nothing more. Your ship is an obsolete relic, pathetic, really. Do you truly think you stand a chance against the might of the Dravar?" He leaned forward, his expression now a mixture of pity and mockery. "We will not kill you, human. But if you persist, your fate will be a lesson for the rest of your species. I will make sure of it." With that, the screen went black, the communication severed, leaving the humans with nothing but the silent hum of their ship and the looming threat of the Dravar fleet hanging in the void. Captain Larson stared at the empty screen for a moment before exhaling slowly. There was no panic, no hesitation. His voice was steady as he turned to his crew. "They underestimate us," Larson said, his tone firm but measured. "I won't give them the satisfaction of seeing fear." "Sir?" Sorel spoke up again, this time with an edge of urgency. "They've just sent us an encrypted transmission. It's a broadcast from their flagship. It's a challenge." Larson glanced at the screen, and a brief flicker of amusement danced in his eyes. He already knew what this was, an invitation to surrender, a final, condescending demand for the humans to bow to their superior might. He didn't need to see it to know what it would say. "Let's hear it." The transmission came through, and the words were as expected. "Your fleet is nothing. Your technology is nothing. You will be crushed beneath our boots. Surrender now and live. Resist, and you will perish." Captain Larson's lip curled slightly, his eyes narrowing with resolve. "Let's show them that we're not as helpless as they think," he said quietly. The crew of the USS Resolve was ready, their hands steady on the controls, their eyes sharp and focused. Despite the taunts, the threats, and the massive superiority of the Drava fleet, they had one thing the aliens didn't: humanity's refusal to be crushed. They may have been underestimated, but humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their ships or their technology. It was in their unyielding determination. The stage was set for the showdown, and the humans wouldn't back down. The silence in space was almost deafening, broken only by the soft hum of the USS Resolve's engines. The Drava fleet loomed ominously around the small human vessel, the contrast in power stark and undeniable. The Drava ships, massive and sleek, seemed to swallow up the void. Their weapon systems pulsed with energy, designed to lay waste to entire worlds, and their shields shimmered with the glow of advanced technology. It was the kind of overwhelming force that had caused entire species to submit without a fight. The USS Resolve was an old ship, its surface pockmarked and scuffed from years of service. Its weapons were outdated by galactic standards, the engines barely capable of handling the rigors of deep space travel. Compared to the Drava fleet, it was like a child trying to stand against a giant, and the Dravar knew it. They made no secret of their disdain for humanity's supposed primitive technology. Without warning, a broadcast crackled to life on the human ship's comms. The face of a Dravar officer appeared, a reptilian figure with cold, cruel eyes. He looked down at the human captain with an expression of amused superiority, as if he were addressing a small animal. "Is this what you call a warship?" the officer sneered. "I can barely see it from here. A scrap of metal floating through space, held together by what? Human ingenuity? You call this a military vessel? It's laughable." The words were laced with venom, each syllable dripping with condescension. The officer chuckled darkly, and behind him, the glistening forms of the Dravar flagship and its accompanying fleet loomed large. The broadcast zoomed out, showcasing the full might of their ships, massive, jagged vessels equipped with cutting-edge weaponry, far beyond the scope of anything humanity had. It was a show of power, and the Dravar were making it clear that they were the dominant force in the galaxy. "Your shields are primitive," the officer continued, smirking. "Your weapons? I doubt they could even scratch our outer hull. Look at your ship. A handful of humans, clinging to a relic of a bygone era. Do you honestly believe you have the capability to fight us?" The broadcast flickered and shifted, and the view changed to one of the Dravar flagship's enormous weapon systems. The alien officer zoomed in on the glowing cannons, the sleek targeting systems, and the devastating energy shields. "See these weapons?" the officer asked, his tone mockingly slow. "This is what real power looks like. Your pathetic vessel would be obliterated before you even had a chance to fire a single shot. You are outmatched, outgunned, and by all accounts, outclassed." His words were a clear provocation, meant to shake the humans' resolve, but instead of fear, the crew aboard the USS Resolve stood firm. Captain Larson, the human commander, watched the broadcast with a calm, almost amused expression. He didn't flinch, didn't blink. He simply folded his arms and leaned back in his chair. "We'll see about that," Larson muttered under his breath. The crew of the USS Resolve exchanged quiet looks, but none of them allowed their emotions to show. Lieutenant Sorel, the communications officer, typed something rapidly on her console and then looked at Larson. "They're mocking us, Captain," she said, her voice flat. "They're saying we don't stand a chance." Larson nodded. He could feel the tension mounting within his crew, but it wasn't fear, it was determination, a quiet resolve. He turned to the rest of his officers. "Stay calm," Larson said, his voice steady. "We've faced worse before. If we go into this expecting anything else, we'll fail. We don't need their respect. We need to stay focused. One of the engineers, a gruff man named Finch, piped up from the back of the bridge. Sir, Finch said, his voice low but confident. I've been tinkering with the power output on our engines. We can push them beyond safe limits. It won't make us faster, but we can squeeze a little more out of them. As for our weapons, well, it's not much, but I've adjusted our targeting systems to be more efficient. It's risky, but if we get the shot, it could count. Larson's gaze sharpened, and he gave a nod of approval. Good work, Finch. We'll make it count. Back on the Drava flagship, the alien officer's mocking tone continued. You'll regret this defiance, human. We've destroyed civilizations more advanced than yours, and we'll do it again. There's no honor in this battle for you. It's simply a matter of time before your species is wiped from existence. He smiled a cold, toothy grin, his eyes gleaming with pride. We will teach you your place. The communication ended, and once again, silence descended on the bridge of the USS Resolve. The crew members sat motionless, their faces unreadable, yet their eyes burned with quiet intensity. They weren't intimidated by the Dravar's arrogance. In fact, it fueled them. Larson sat in his chair, hands steady on the console. He didn't respond to the broadcast with words. Instead, he issued a simple command. Prepare to engage. Full power to the forward weapons array. Keep your heads cool. This isn't about the size of the ship. It's about how we fight. As the Drava fleet continued to circle, seemingly certain of their victory, the humans aboard the USS Resolve remained calm, their unity and composure a stark contrast to the brash overconfidence of their opponents. The Dravar had underestimated them, and while they may have laughed and ridiculed humanity, they had not accounted for one crucial factor: the human spirit. They would soon find out just how wrong they were. Captain Larson's voice cut through the tension on the bridge, calm and steady, yet carrying the weight of a promise that the Dravar would soon learn the truth. Prepare to engage. Power up the cloaking device. Give them nothing to track. The crew's response was immediate, each member working with practiced efficiency. The USS Resolve, long ridiculed as a useless relic, began to shift its position in space, its systems humming to life with a quiet intensity. The Dravar had expected a swift and easy victory, but the humans had spent years preparing, quietly tinkering with technology that no one thought possible. On the Dravar flagship, their sensors pulsed with disdain, unable to register any sudden movements from the human ship. The Dravar commanders watched, still certain that victory was inevitable, even as they noticed an odd lack of any major movement from their opponent. Why isn't it fleeing? Why isn't it cowering? One of the alien officers muttered. His fingers hovered over his controls, tracing the area where the USS Resolve had been moments ago. The human ship had vanished entirely, blending into the vast emptiness of space. No energy readings, no heat signatures, no movement to track. The Dravar didn't understand it, they couldn't. Meanwhile, on the USS Resolve, Larson smiled to himself. The Dravar thought they had seen every trick humanity could offer. The cloaking system, which had been designed to hide the ship from the most advanced scanning systems, was active, rendering the Resolve invisible to the naked eye and to the Dravar's sophisticated sensors. It wasn't perfect, but it would give them an edge, at least for a little while. Sorel, sitting at her station, held her breath. Cloak is holding steady, Captain. They're blind to us. Good, Larson said, his eyes never leaving the view screen. Now, let's make them regret their arrogance. With another quick command, Larson directed the ship into a rapid acceleration. The USS Resolve surged forward with surprising speed, far faster than the Dravar had expected. Finch had pushed the ship's engines to the limit, drawing every last ounce of power from the fuel reserves. It wasn't sustainable, but it didn't need to be. The key was surprise. The human ship darted through the space around the Dravar fleet, undetected and unpredictable. Its course was erratic, making it harder for the enemy to calculate its movements. The alien ships tried to track it, but the human vessel was too quick and too unpredictable. On board, Larsen gave a subtle nod to his weapons officer. "Target the largest ship," he ordered. "Find its weak points. Then take the shot. All or nothing." The Drava were still on edge, their fleet commander barking orders to ready their weapons. They expected the human ship to be destroyed easily once it revealed itself. But the Resolve remained unseen, moving faster and faster, closing the distance to the largest Drava vessel with terrifying speed. Then, as the USS Resolve came within range, the cloaking system flickered briefly, just enough to lock onto the Drava ship's critical weak point. The ship's advanced weapons came to life. A series of high-powered particle beams flared, each striking with unerring precision. The first hit connected with one of the Drava ship's massive energy shields. The shield flared and absorbed the hit, but just for a second. It was enough to destabilize it. The next shot, a focused burst of electromagnetic pulses, tore into the Drava ship's outer hull, sending sparks flying and causing the shields to flicker violently. Before the aliens had a chance to retaliate, a final, devastating shot, an experimental human energy weapon, ripped through the Drava vessel's core. The ship's defensive systems couldn't respond quickly enough. The entire port side of the ship exploded in a burst of searing energy, turning the once mighty vessel into a cloud of debris. The Drava fleet was thrown into confusion. Their leader, staring at the remains of his flagship, struggled to comprehend what had just happened. What is this? How could they? The Drava commander stammered, his voice thick with disbelief. The broadcast came through from the USS Resolve once again, but this time, it wasn't an act of mockery. It was a calm, deliberate statement from Larsen. "This is what humanity is capable of." Larsen's voice echoed across the Drava fleet. "You think we're weak, primitive. You underestimated us, and now you're paying the price." The Drava, once so certain of their superiority, were now caught in a wave of panic. The remaining ships immediately began evasive maneuvers, but the USS Resolve was already on the move again, striking faster and harder than before. Another shot fired from the Resolve found its mark, striking a critical point on a second Drava ship, sending it spiraling toward its doom. The Drava commanders scrambled, their confidence shattered, as the USS Resolve continued its relentless assault. The alien fleet, once so imposing and sure of itself, was now reeling. The Drava ships began to scatter, their formation faltering as their commanders tried to regroup. But the damage had already been done. Humanity's ingenuity, the very thing that had been mocked and overlooked, had turned the tide in their favor. The human crew, composed and methodical, didn't revel in the destruction. They remained focused, pushing forward with the quiet confidence that had defined them throughout the conflict. Their ship's weapon systems hummed with power, ready for the next attack. As the Drava fleet began to retreat, their arrogance completely shattered. Humanity, once seen as a weak and inconsequential species, had just proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. And in the wake of the battle, the Drava would have no choice but to acknowledge the strength they had so arrogantly dismissed. The USS Resolve had just rewritten the rules of war. The USS Resolve moved with uncanny precision, its sleek hull slipping through the void with a grace that belied its size. As the Drava scrambled to regroup, their once imposing fleet now disorganized and desperate, the human warship became a ghost on the battlefield. The Resolve flickered in and out of visibility, taking advantage of every cloaking moment to strike swiftly before vanishing again, leaving the Drava commanders struggling to adapt. In the distance, the Drava flagship, a massive, ominous vessel once thought impervious, was beginning to falter. Its advanced shield systems, designed to withstand the fiercest of barrages, had already been weakened in the earlier strikes. Now, with each successive attack from the human ship, the shields flickered and sparked, struggling to keep the damage at bay. The Drava fleet, now on the defensive, began to scatter. In their haste, their once dominant formations fell apart. The human captain, Larsen, saw the cracks and seized the opportunity. He ordered a high-speed intercept, cutting through the Drava forces with precision. The USS Resolve engaged its advanced weaponry, each shot fired with military precision, targeting the Drava ship's weak points. In one swift motion, a Dravar cruiser was torn in half. The Resolve had launched a focused energy pulse, a weapon humanity had only recently developed, and the result was devastating. The cruiser's engines exploded in a burst of flame and debris, and within moments, nothing remained but floating wreckage. The Dravar were no longer laughing. "Captain, they're scattering," Lieutenant Sorel reported, her fingers flying across the control panel. "They're trying to break formation and retreat." Larsen's eyes narrowed. He knew the Dravar would try to escape. It was their only chance to salvage anything from the battle. But he wasn't about to let them off the hook. "Not on my watch," Larsen muttered, his voice a low growl. "We don't let them get away. Prepare for pursuit." The USS Resolve surged forward, its engines glowing with intense heat as it accelerated past Dravar ships that were desperately trying to retreat. Larsen ordered the ship to engage in a series of rapid maneuvers, cutting off escape routes and ensuring the Dravar had nowhere to run. As the alien ships began to panic, their desperate attempts to flee only played into the humans' hands. Larsen, sensing the Dravar's fear, pushed his crew to act even faster, directing them to exploit the smallest openings. The human warship was everywhere at once, like a phantom on the battlefield, delivering blows that the Dravar fleet simply couldn't respond to. One Dravar ship, in a frantic bid to escape, attempted to jump into hyperspace, but it was too late. Just as the vessel powered up its engines for a jump, the USS Resolve hit it with a direct EMP burst, disabling its hyperspace drive in a single shot. The Dravar ship shuddered to a halt, dead in space, as the human warship closed in for the kill. The Resolve fired again, and this time, the Dravar ship erupted into a fiery explosion, the shockwave sending debris scattering across the battlefield. The rest of the Dravar fleet, once so confident in their superiority, was now being hunted down methodically. The human warship's precision was surgical, its weapon systems cutting through the alien forces like a hot knife through butter. The Dravar commanders had no answers, no effective counters to humanity's cunning. Their once feared technology was useless in the face of the humans' adaptability. Inside the USS Resolve, the human crew worked in perfect harmony. There was no panic, no hesitation, just a unified determination to see the mission through. Lieutenant Sorel had a tight smile on her face as she monitored the battlefield. "They're not even fighting back anymore, Captain. They're scattering, trying to escape. Let them run," Larsen replied, his voice calm but tinged with resolve. "We'll finish this." Outside, the chaos was unfolding. The Dravar, realizing they were losing, began to panic. Alien warships, once part of an imposing armada, now appeared scattered and disoriented. The humans, however, were relentless. They were everywhere, targeting key ships with deadly accuracy. As Larsen watched the chaos unfold on his screen, he knew that the tide had turned. The Dravar's arrogance had blinded them to humanity's true strength. The Dravar fleet, now reduced to a mere fraction of its former size, tried to regroup, but it was too late. The USS Resolve had outmaneuvered them at every turn, and their once feared ships were falling one by one. Larsen gave the order to press the attack. A lone Dravar battleship tried to engage the Resolve head-on, firing everything it had in a last-ditch effort to land a blow. But the human ship was too quick. The Resolve deftly avoided the incoming fire, using the debris from fallen ships as cover, slipping in and out of sight with expert precision. In the blink of an eye, Larsen ordered a devastating counterstrike. The Resolve launched a barrage of homing missiles that found their mark in seconds, obliterating the Dravar battleship in a massive explosion. The remaining ships, those few still intact, began to retreat in earnest, the once proud fleet now reduced to a scattering of survivors. It was clear, the Dravar had lost. The humans had not only held their ground, they had decimated the mightiest empire in the galaxy. But the victory wasn't just about technology or firepower. It was about something deeper. The Dravar had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, its ability to turn the tables with speed and precision. Where the Dravar had relied on brute force, humanity had relied on intelligence, cunning, and adaptability. And now, the Dravar fleet was on the brink of annihilation, its pride shattered beyond repair. The USS Resolve had done what the Dravar had never thought possible. They had underestimated humanity's strength, and that, in the end, had been their fatal mistake. As the final Dravar ships either exploded into the void or fled in terror, the battlefield fell eerily silent. The once imposing fleet that had mocked humanity now lay in ruins or scattered across the galaxy, a distant memory of arrogance and hubris. The USS Resolve, now victorious, lingered in the stillness, its crew savoring the silence that had replaced the chaos of battle. It wasn't just a victory over a superior enemy, it was a statement. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. Captain Larson stood at the helm, watching the empty space where the once mighty Dravar fleet had been. His expression was calm, but beneath that calm lay a quiet pride. He knew what this victory meant. It wasn't just about the immediate battle, it was the dawn of a new era for humanity. They had proven that, despite their perceived weaknesses, they could face down even the most powerful foes and emerge victorious. The Resolve, once dismissed as useless by the Dravar, had become a symbol of human ingenuity and unyielding spirit. "Send a message to the remaining Dravar forces," Larson ordered, his voice steady. "Tell them they've been beaten, and Earth will no longer tolerate their mockery." His first officer, Commander Riley, nodded and transmitted the message to the Dravar. The words were simple, direct, and final. "Earth is not to be underestimated. We do not bow to those who seek to conquer us. Your fleet has been defeated. We will no longer tolerate your oppression." Larson felt a surge of satisfaction as the message went out. The Dravar had underestimated humanity, and now the whole galaxy would know that Earth would not be an easy target. It would be respected, or it would fight. There was no middle ground. Within moments, the message spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Other alien civilizations began to take notice, their communication systems pinging with messages of recognition. The defeat of the Dravar, once seen as an unthinkable event, was now a reality. Alien species that had once viewed humans as insignificant, as little more than a footnote in the grand cosmic theater, began to reconsider their assumptions. It was clear now, humanity was not a species to be trifled with. The USS Resolve's crew celebrated quietly, each member processing the enormity of their achievement in their own way. There was no wild revelry, no loud cheering, just a deep, quiet pride. They had done something no one had expected. They had not only held their ground, but they had turned the tide, using their wits, their cunning, and their technology to defeat a foe far more advanced and far more arrogant. The victory wasn't just about firepower. It was about resilience, adaptability, and unity. Lieutenant Sorel, who had been at the tactical console during the battle, turned to Larson. "Captain, we've received messages from several alien factions. They're acknowledging our strength. Some of them are even extending offers of peace and cooperation." Larson nodded. "It's what we hoped for," he said. "We've earned their respect. They've seen what humanity is capable of. We won't be just a target anymore. We're a power in this galaxy now, for better or worse." As the crew went about their duties, Larson felt a deep sense of accomplishment. But there was more to it than just the victory over the Dravar. This was the moment when humanity had truly established itself as a force in the galaxy. It wasn't just about winning one battle, it was about the message sent to every other alien species. Humanity had proven that even against overwhelming odds, they could prevail. And in doing so, they had shown that their strength wasn't just in technology, it was in their ingenuity, their will to survive, and their refusal to back down. Meanwhile, the Dravar were reeling from the consequences of their actions. Their fleet, once a symbol of their dominance, was now a shattered husk of what it had been. The humiliation of defeat was a bitter pill for the Dravar to swallow. No longer could they claim superiority over the humans. Their arrogance had led to their downfall, and now they had to retreat, licking their wounds and reassessing their position in the galaxy. The Dravar commanders, once so dismissive of humanity, had no choice but to withdraw to their homeworlds. The humiliating defeat would echo in their halls for years to come, forcing them to reconsider their approach to Earth, and to humanity as a whole. The galaxy had changed in an instant. The Dravar had underestimated the humans, and now they would have to live with the consequences. Across the galaxy, a new reality was taking shape. Humanity had proven itself to be more than just a species to be mocked and dismissed. The galaxy now had to reckon with Earth's place in it, and the humans themselves were standing on the threshold of a new era. They had faced an enemy far stronger than themselves and had emerged victorious, their reputation solidified, their power recognized. And yet, despite the victory, Larson knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy had taken notice, but there was still much to be done. Humanity was no longer a species on the edge of the galaxy, forgotten and dismissed. They were now a force to be reckoned with, a species that would no longer bow to anyone. The message had been sent, loud and clear. As the USS Resolve drifted among the wreckage of the Dravar fleet, Larson looked out into the vastness of space. The stars ahead were not just a backdrop to humanity's journey, they were a symbol of what lay ahead. The galaxy was full of challenges, full of unknowns, but humanity was no longer an outsider. They had proven themselves capable, strong, and unyielding. "We've made our mark," Larson said quietly to himself, staring into the infinite stars. "And now we rise."